So a while ago, I talked about like what my version of a Lolita movie would look like, specifically how it would be a horror movie, seeing as how the book is essentially horror. I think having a genre just called classic lit really does a disservice to the works themselves. That being said, though, this is how I would do the movie. Things will be implied, but I'm not going to go into detail because you really don't need to do that to get the point across at all. We would open with shadow puppets, a la the beginning of the remake of Candyman, where Humbert narrates himself both his life and how he lost his first love, Annabelle. And he talks about how he has always wanted to meet another love of his life again. Then we transition into a Disney-esque style of animation. The world is chipper and bright. Humbert himself looks very young, I would say like maybe early 20s. He's painted and portrayed as this charming young man who discusses all of the love he has lost over the years, his wife leaving him, and now he goes to become a sensitive novelist. He's in the New England states. He then meets a woman named Charlotte who is downtrodden and could really use a man in the house for handyman purposes as well as a bit of income. Humbert, the shiny prince of the story, of course offers to live with her, and through her meets Lolita, this gorgeous nymphette who looks like one of the sprites from the Fantasia movies. She is shiny and ethereal, floating through the house, her feet never touching the ground. Humbert declares her his muse and begins to write about her incessantly. Time passes and he grows closer to Lolita, even having bouts of jealousy when neighborhood children come and play with her. Lolita then goes off to summer camp and Humbert is left with Charlotte, who then decries that it needs a husband. Humbert, out of the goodness of his heart, of course, marries her. However, Humbert then narrates that tragedy struck when Lolita's mother was going out to mail some letters and was hit by a car. We then cut to Humbert going to the summer camp where he takes Lolita. He even asks for her by name, to which the camp counselor says they don't have a girl by that name. However, there is another cut and Lolita is in the car with Humbert and they go to a hotel. Her asking about her mother and Humbert narrating how he didn't have the heart to tell her that her mother is dead. So instead, he says that she is sick and merely hospitalized. At the hotel, Lolita isn't really settling down, so Humbert makes her a special drink. He then leaves her to rest, her looking like Sleeping Beauty come to life, as he walks around and meets a man. This man begins to ask Humbert a lot of questions, both about why he's staying and about Lolita. Humbert assumes this man, once Lolita, grows incredibly jealous and essentially races back to the room. Lolita is still awake, drowsy, and Humbert lays next to her and opines how much he loves her. The next morning, Lolita is gone from the room and Humbert goes to find her, and she's in the breakfast area. I don't know how common this is, but at least in America, a lot of hotels offer a free breakfast. In the breakfast area, she's sitting down next to the mysterious man that Humbert met the night before. Humbert is enraged and goes to grab Lolita, even calling her by her name, to which the man looks at Lolita and says, "I thought your name was Dolores." To which Lolita responds, "It is." Humbert drags the girl out, berating her, and then goes to pack up their things and they immediately leave, the mysterious man staring at them from the entrance of the hotel as they drive off. At the next hotel they stop at, Lolita talks about her time at summer camp, discussing a boy she had been with, to which Humbert becomes incredibly jealous, and it is a fade to black. The Disney-like style of the movie has completely transitioned to a warped and grisly stop-motion animation. And for the first time, we meet Dolores, a little girl reminiscent of Scout from To Kill a Mockingbird, as she lays in the dark and cries, a daunting, massive shape behind her rhythmically breathing. And we see what Humbert really looks like. He is not a young, charming Disney prince. He is instead a very creepy old man. We are now in Dolores' perspective where she narrates what is going on. She talks about how her mother took Humbert in and at first he seemed so nice. I'd have her then discuss that the tryst Humbert was so enraged by was actually her just connecting with a boy and them sharing kisses like children do. You as the audience now realizing that this man is purely a monster. I'd have it that Dolores takes out a small piece of paper that has the number of the man from the hotel. She debates whether or not to call him, wondering if this strange man is going to truly save her or be just like Humbert. I'd also have it that while nothing graphic is shown in terms of the abuse Dolores suffers, you see the bruises left on her afterwards. You see that emotional pain, because to me, it's a lot harder to fetishize the aftermath. We see the next morning how Humbert really acts and how he moves. I would have him move in like a very unsettling way. His animation jerkier than Dolores's. And I'd have it that Dolores continuously wants to ask for help, wants someone to save her, but she doesn't know who to trust. Humbert gives her gifts, gives her candy, and Dolores realizes that he is bribing her. Eventually they settle down in one place, and Dolores thinks maybe everything will turn around because Humbert's allowing her to go to school. I'd have it that one of the teachers notices bruises on Dolores's arms. The school then calls Humbert in to ask about them, to which Humbert says, oh, she's a terribly misbehaved child at home, and, she runs into things. When they get home, however, Humbert berates Dolores and essentially tells her, you are not allowed to go out anymore. We are going to move, you're going to leave that school. This is the final straw to where Dolores thinks it's better to get a new devil than to stay with this one that I know. She has kept the mystery man's number this whole time, and one day when she goes to school, she stops at a payphone and calls him. It turns out that the mystery man is actually a private investigator who was sent to look for Dolores. We learn that he was actually hired by Dolores's grandparents who were estranged from their daughter. Also that they reported her as kidnapped, and that witnesses said that Dolores's mother seemed to be in an absolute panic running out of the house. He asks Dolores where she is located because he had tried tailing them, but Humbert had gotten away from him. Dolores gives her location and then heads to school. But she is late, so when she gets there, Humbert is waiting for her in the office. He uses her being late as to show the school, see, she's a rambunctious child, she can't be trusted, and he says he's going to take her home. Dolores immediately runs away. However, she is caught by Humbert, and you then get to see the massive difference between the two, that she is a small child going up against this fully grown man. When he takes her home, he begins to berate her, to which Dolores, for the first time, verbally fights back. At one point, he calls her Lolita to her face, and Dolores screams at him, that is not my name. He goes to grab her, but she scrambles away from him, locking herself in her room, and then going out through the window. She's sitting on the roof's edge of her house when a bunch of police cars show up. They of course notice her, and she begins to cry, saying her full name, saying that he's inside, he's killed my mother, he keeps hurting me. Also, even though the private investigator doesn't get there till later, he's tipped off the police, hey, there's a kidnapped child in your area. And from the school, who is also weirded out by Humbert, they learn her address and go to her house. The police storm the house, and I would have it that Humbert takes himself out. Specifically because he, above all else, is a coward that didn't want to have to face the consequences of what he has done. Dolores has gotten off the roof and is given over to the private investigator, who then takes her to her grandparents' home. It's a small, quaint house in the country, and I'd have there be a time skip later. The private investigator is now a lot older, and the animation has gone from very dark and grisly to still stop motion, but cleaner. We now see an adult Dolores who is pregnant with her first child, who has a very loving husband. And we learn that the private investigator has been invited out because this is her baby shower. She has friends and she has family. I'd have it end with the private investigator smiling at Dolores, handing her a present. Somebody passes his vision, and when he sees her again, she is the child he first met all those years ago. And she looks at him and smiles. I couldn't give it a sad ending. My baby girl deserves to be happy.